Good morning, everybody. It's fantastic to see you all here today. I'm delighted to be with you, and I'm delighted to be with my guest, James Ashford. This is the last in our full disclosure series on pricing. I'll get to James in a little bit. We have a lot in common, agree a lot, disagree sometimes, so it's going to be a really good chat today. Now, I just wanted you to imagine what it would be like if you had clarity. That's effectively why we've created this web event series. Full disclosure, so you can get into the topics that are really, really important to you and that matter to you. Like us, you've probably seen lots of webinars. We've been bombarded with them over the last 18 months. Some good, some not so good. Some have kind of bored of the content and maybe the pitch style or the light content in those webinars. So we wanted to bring you full disclosure, no holds barred, frank conversations on those topics that really matter to you. Everything you wanted to ask, but were either maybe too afraid to. I'll happily look stupid for you, so you can ask those questions to me. I have no problem with that. Or perhaps maybe you never asked them because you weren't going to get the whole truth. So this is what full disclosure is all about. Practical insights, real life experience, more stories, quick wins, what you need to do to absolutely get there. Now, I'm really excited to be joined by James today. I've known James for quite a while. We've crossed paths many times. How do you introduce somebody like James? I suppose I could do the usual and say he's a best-selling author, he's founder of Go Proposal, Oversweet, he's a director at MAP. Could do all that usual stuff, but I think it's more important to introduce James as somebody who's had a massive impact on the profession. He's changed the life of many accountants and many firms. He's got a lot to say. I'm really excited to get started. Now, I can see that people are using the chat and can use the chat functionality. Good morning, based in Sheffield. Shida, how are you this morning? Morning, Mark. We got Tim as well. We know quite a few of those, James. And Jane Gilbert, morning from rainy Cornwall. Well, I'm actually in a cloudy Spain at the moment, cloudy southern Spain, which is unusual. So I can share some of that with you. James, now, before we get on to this is going to be a fireside chat. I just wanted to, if you want to follow us on social media, we are pretty much all over social media on various different channels. Those are pretty much the same handles you're going to see on much of the platforms we're on. So please do follow us. Do join along. You can live tweet, or you can put some comments into LinkedIn. We'd be happy to get involved in those conversations. And if you do want to use the hashtag, which is ClarityFD, that keeps it all together. That's absolutely great too, but no pressure to do so. Right, I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to go into fireside chat mode, James. Oh, and you're not in fireside chat mode because
how do I get by the fire?
No, you're by the fire.
There we
now.
go.
You're not quite in the fire. You're by the fire.
Oh, there we go. Lovely stuff.
Lovely stuff. Exactly, James. So, for the audience who maybe don't quite know a bit about your background, can you give us a little bit of understanding as to everything that brought you up to the point of forming Go Proposal? Like, why Go Proposal?
Yeah, okay. So very varied background, Aynsley. So I studied product design at university. After that, I taught art in prisons. I was a close-up magician for a number of years. And then I was working in a couple of companies, and I ended up, it was when the recession hit and I got made redundant. And I had this brilliant idea that, you know what, I said to my wife, I know how we're going to make loads of cash and have loads of time to spend together. I'm going to set up my own business. And it was the absolute opposite of that. And, frantically read E-Myth Revisited and kind of learned how to build a business, but you get into it. And the reality is you don't know what you don't know. And, we had a good marketing company, but ultimately we didn't have the full finance function in place in that business. We got a lot of things right, but we made lots of I made lots of small mistakes. And by the time we realized what they were, we're on the edge of a cliff, and I didn't really have it in me, I don't think, at the time to pull it back from that cliff. And so that business went. But on that journey, I'd met some great business owners who had respected what I'd done for them. And I started working them with those in like a business consultancy capacity. And every time I worked with them, the challenge nearly always was around how they priced and sold their services. If they fixed that, it had such a huge impact on the business. And some of these businesses were big businesses. Like one was a £14 million revenue business. And we looked at that component, implemented what was then a very primitive version of Go Proposal. And within 30 days, their account sign up had increased by tenfold, gone from like 8 up to like, my math's gonna be wrong now, like 7 or 8, but up to like 60 sign-ups a month. It was a huge uplift. And I replicated the same thing for different businesses in different industries. And then through my meandering, met an accountant at an event in Harrogate. Someone is putting in, Matthew Elliott is put, I'm based in sunny Manchester. I do not believe for a second that Manchester is sunny, because I set off from Doncaster to Manchester most days, and I have my shades on when I set off, and I go over the Pennines and just hit a wall of rain. So I'm not having that for a second. Met an accountant, Paul Barnes of MAP, very progressive firm, very entrepreneurial in his thinking, 0 award winners, fully on the cloud, all that stuff. And he kind of said, don't think we need you. I think we've figured this stuff out. And I said, well, let me see what's going on here. And, they did have a lot of things right, but he was the bottleneck in the process. The client experience was poor. It took 2 or 3 days for them to get a proposal. It wasn't collaborative, but he did have a lot of great thinking behind the pricing. So we developed a tool that allowed this collaborative thinking. And here's the key part of this, Aynsley. I really wanted to help Paul in his business and help them to, price consistently, sell more confidently, and empower the team to do it and all that stuff. But my other hat was, I was a business owner and I never got what I wanted, because maybe, the accountant didn't reveal it to me or feel the confidence to sell it to me. So when I developed this, I wanted to create a genuine win-win, in that I was looking at it through the lens of the accountant, but through the lens of the client as well. So I needed to help the accountant to sell the services the client needed at the right price, because if the accountant doesn't sell it at the right price, they then can't deliver the service that the client needs. So you've kind of got to create this win-win situation, and that's what we've tried to do with Go Proposal.
And what was it about accountants that attracted you? So so in your business, so what was that accountant connection that?
I think we'd done with the thing that sparked Go Proposal was that I like Go Proposal had been meandering through a version of it had been meandering through businesses for a number of years. So it's a lot older than people think, or the philosophies and the thinking is a lot older. Then it hit Paul Barnes at MAP. And to my mind, it was just another single business that needed this problem solving. So I never thought wider than that. And then what happened was another accounting firm heard about it and said, how are you guys doing that? And so I said, well, let me show you. And that was the spark. It was those two components that made me think, well, maybe this is a commercial product. And the beauty of the accounting industry was that, generally speaking, they have a consistent set of services, or, a comparable set of services to each other. And so it means that we've got a method for loading those into the system very quickly. So it means that someone can get up and running very quickly. But I was just very interested in, when I started meeting accountants and bookkeepers, they're just good people. Like, they want to do good things. They genuinely want to help. They genuinely want to serve, but they've never really been shown how to sit, how to have that pricing conversation, how to sometimes have what they perceive as a difficult conversation, because typically they're logical thinkers. And when it comes to pricing and selling, there is logic to it, but it's also quite an emotional thing as well. And so, there's lots of nuances to it. And, my view with this, and I know you've had other speakers on there, and I don't necessarily agree with all your other speakers, and we've butted heads over the years, but that's all good. It's all healthy. But, to my mind, when you're looking at this, there's lots of lenses that you have to look at it through. You can't just say, well, this works in this regard. You have to look at it through all these different lenses. And I feel that's what we're able to do with what we created, that it considered, how to have a difficult conversation, how to potentially increase a client's fee, how to do it so that the client feels that they're on the journey with you, how to maximize the lifetime value, how to empower 17-year-old bookkeeper Sam to go and have that pricing conversation with a client and feel confident to increase that client's fees. So I'm all about how, actually doing things that makes a difference. And very grateful to be on this call today with you, Aynsley, and for every single person that's attended. We're not here to entertain people today. We're here to give people practical tools and tips and steps that they can actually take and make a difference. Otherwise, what is the point of being on this call if you're not actually going to make a 1 degree or a 1-step change after we've shared what we're sharing?
Fantastic. Now, you've raised so many issues and points there, most of which we're going to be covering. So For those that missed that, there's a lot of content there but we are going to come back to it, please. So don't worry, we're not missing any of those nuggets, and we're going to expand on them as well. So getting into the various types of pricing. So let's start at the start. But one point I want to, before I get into that. So let's deal with this imposter syndrome, right? So a lot of accountants have imposter syndrome. What do you say to those that are lacking the confidence, or just feel, well, shoot, I don't think I can do this, or maybe this isn't, maybe we just have to stick with what we know and we don't go outside our comfort zone?
Yeah, I was thinking about imposter syndrome on this drive today, actually. I was thinking, if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're probably an imposter.
Right.
You know, like, I constantly feel it. I constantly think, waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder, say, we figured you out. We know that you don't know what you're talking about. You know, and I think where that comes from is, you know, that you care, you want to make sure that you're doing your best, and you realize that, you know, no one's figured all this stuff out. And I think this is really important, Aynsley. You know, I speak to so many brilliant people, so many brilliant firms, and they tend to look at what other firms are doing and they think, well, they've got it figured out, or they've got it figured out. No one's got it figured out. Everybody is work in progress. We're all students. We're all developing, and we're all helping each other up. What we're doing today is, you know, we're throwing a hand back down and grabbing the people on this call and helping to pull them up. But likewise, everyone on here has the potential to throw a hand back down to us and pull us up. We're all helping each other to move forward. And sometimes I think when people feel imposter syndrome is they look online and they see, you know, great branding or great videos or what other people are doing, and they think they've figured it out. If you looked on I think we're connected on Facebook, aren't we, Aynsley, right? So if you looked on my personal Facebook page, you see my beautiful wife. You see my arm round her at the races the other week, you know, beautiful pictures of my kids looking immaculate, right? What you don't see is all the stupid arguments that we have over absolutely nothing that's just completely ridiculous, or me shouting at the kids, or them doing something like, you know, you just, kids by like 8 o'clock, you're like, just go to bed and shut up. I do not care. Please don't talk to me anymore. Like, you don't say, but 1 second, let me just photograph that and post that online. No one posts the crap. You just post the good stuff. So you can't compare yourself to anyone else. All you're compared to, Aynsley, is your firm last month, your firm last week. And all you're trying to be is that much better.
Agree with that. I think too many people see it as too big a point to climb. So when you look from here to where you need to get, it's too big. Whereas when we break it down and take one step at a time, it makes a massive, massive difference. And to take that first step. Now we're going to get into mindset and taking that first step, but let's talk a little bit about pricing before we get into that, because we do need to cover a little bit about pricing. You know the types of pricing out there. There's, you know, value pricing, value billing even. We've heard about on this session as a difference from value pricing, fixed pricing, menu pricing, hourly billing. What pricing methodologies do you recommend? And is it a one-size-fits-all approach?
I've got a new one as well. I've got a new one to mix it all up with Ains.
Fantastic. Shoot.
I'm not telling you about that. We'll come on to that one later.
Okay.
I don't know if having one type of pricing, or, you know, to say this is the way that we go, is necessarily the right way to think about it. I think there's something else that needs to be considered. And I think what can be a danger is, you know, most firms don't charge for everything they do. I know that for a fact, okay? And they don't charge for all the hard work they do. So I imagine that most people on this call are doing more work than they're getting paid for. The clients aren't valuing them enough, and they wish they were getting paid more money, right?
Yes.
So then what happens is you're in that position of pain. You hear of a pricing methodology or a way of, well, you know, I've gone toe to toe with people talking about 3-tier pricing. So you can say, well, 3-tier pricing is great. If you present 3 prices to a client, 3 different packages, the likelihood is they will go for a higher package and they will spend more money with you than if you went with a lower package, right? Great. But all you're doing is looking at it through one lens. And then what you can do in that scenario is, well, you think, well, I'm in pain. That seems to be a solution, so I'll go for it. But you need to consider it through many other lenses. And it's more important that's happening. So, for example, when I first met Paul, I'm meandering here. When I first met Paul, he was the only person doing the pricing and selling to clients, okay? And then he would send the proposal back to the team and they would go and deliver on it. The problem now is, what about when the scopes change? Because It always changes. There is no way that you know what that client needs at the end of the year, at the start of the year. It's going to change, especially with a new client. You have no idea what's going on. 3 months in, the scope will be out of whack with what you started with, because by the time you've lifted the bonnet on that business, I promise you it's changed, okay? So if you're the only person that has the facility to change that price, you've now got a problem. So one key way of making sure that you've got the right pricing system in place, whatever it is that you use, is having something that everybody can confidently use. It's okay, you teaching a business owner on this, Aynsley, some weird and fancy and wonderful pricing and sales technique, and they're like, brilliant, this is it. But now they've got to get the team to do it, because the team may not feel so comfortable with using that more weird and wonderful pricing technique. So the team have to be able to use it. Here's the next thing. I don't care what pricing methodology you use, it's never fixed. You're never going to solve it. So the first thing to accept is you are never going to solve pricing. It's never going to be something that solves. Therefore, it has to be something that's constantly evolving. So you now have to give your team the tools and a system that they can actually evolve themselves. Because why should you be the person that has to keep figuring out how to charge, for this? I mean, what's happened recently? You had furloughing last year that all of a sudden came in. Are you charging for that? Are you not charging for that? There's been changes in Brexit recently, something to do with VAT and some things. I can't quite remember what it was, but some changes happened there. So it's a fluid thing. So ideally, you want the team to have the power to change the pricing. And so the example I give here at Ains is, let's say you've got one of your team members and they've got a client who's a restaurant, and they come back and they say, I just don't think this client is profitable. Maybe they track time, maybe it's a hunch, maybe whatever. But it seems to be taking us too long to deal with this restaurant. The question they then need to ask is, well, what's the factors that's making that work take more time? And it might be that they've got multiple branches, or it may be that they've got all these point of sale units, or whatever it may be. Okay, how much extra work do you think it's going to be? 10% extra work for annual accounts. Cool. Well, why not add a factor into the pricing to say that all restaurants, let's add industry as a factor. And if it's a restaurant or hospitality, we're going to increase that service by 10%. Go and try it. When you had Tyaboli at Aynsley and you had a pricing issue, would you want a team member to come and sit with you and say, can you help me to figure out how to charge for this service? Or would you much rather a team member come to you, say, Aynsley, we've had this client, they've not been profitable. We've tried this different way of pricing with them. We've run it for the last 3 months. It seems to be much better. These are the results. These are now the profit margins with this client. Do you think we should roll it out with other people? That is where you want to get to. So you've now got the team not only using the system, but evolving the system.
Cool. So it's very Gerber-esque, isn't it? A system for everything and a system for change as well. So
yes,
I can see where that comes from. Cool. What do you think about timesheets?
Yeah, like Paul in MAP, they use timesheets to track time so they can keep a track of their profitability. And they use it with all clients and all members of staff. I think there are certain projects where you have to track time. Like, someone posted in the GoProposal community this week that one of their clients is selling their business and they're having to deal with the M&A team. And there's lots of requests coming in left, right, and center. How do you price this? Well, you have to price it on time and charge your top fee. And you have to keep a track of it. Like, how else do you do that, right? So there are scenarios with it. My view with timesheets is that they're a great diagnostics tool. So I was trying to lose some weight recently, Ains, and I got a dietitian to help me. And he said, the problem, James, is you don't know how much food you're putting in your mouth. He says, you think that's 40 grams of porridge and you think, therefore, that's how many calories you get in. Weigh how much porridge you've just put in that bowl, and you weigh it and you're like, I've got 100 grams of porridge in my bowl, right? Or you have 3 coffees in a day. You don't realize how much oat milk you're putting in it, and it goes, way off track. So I think timesheets can be used in a very different way as a diagnostics tool. So if you have a client that's not profitable, or a team member that doesn't seem to be bringing in the cash, or a team member that's super profitable, get them to track their time, or get them to track that client for a quarter. So everyone working on that client project tracks their time, and let's try and use it to diagnose it. But once you've done it, just like once you've weighed your food out for a week, you then don't need to weigh your food forevermore, because it helps you to recalibrate and brings you back into what you should be doing.
Interesting. I won't get into the whole timesheets because I can see there's another. I've been drawn into an argument on LinkedIn on timesheets, and we've obviously had two, as you know, on this series who would be dead against timesheets. One thing that came up yesterday was a quote from Gary Boomer, and you can imagine who's just put this question to me, so you can see the attendees. So Gary Boomer said yesterday, Ron Baker has led the charge for value billing. I don't think that's quite right. I think he's led the charge for value pricing, but let's go there anyway. While the cost plus model theory of labor is a Karl Marx theory, this step change in mindset will be critical to your sustaining success and being future ready. What do you say to the view that value pricing is the future and that cost plus and timesheets are the Karl Marx theory of labor?
I think you don't want to attach your pricing methodology that's going to prevent you from being super profitable in the future. So if you are charging on time and therefore you're able to bring in technology that helps you to do something much quicker, or you're able to develop your systems and streamline your processes to do it, then you don't want to be in a position where that then means that you're earning less money. And the moment that because it is about the value that you ultimately bring. Like I was on a call with Gary Vaynerchuk a few months ago. We did some marketing work with him. I think it was $4,000, and I was on the phone for 15 minutes with him, and I got 2 questions answered, two sentences I wrote down, and I came off the phone and I said to Morgan, well worth it. Well worth it for those 2 sentences, right? So I appreciate I value things in maybe different ways to other people, but yeah, so back to your point, you don't want to attach your pricing methodologies that if you develop your business, come up with better ways of doing things, introduce better technology, find the technology, train your team on it, that all of a sudden now you're losing money. And as everyone's seen recently, and since the pandemic, one of the biggest challenges everyone faces is getting staff. Like where people are really struggling to get staff. So if you're selling time, you've now attached your only possible growth to the hardest thing that you can do, which is to get more people. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. And so, and as clients, as a business owner, I don't value time. Like if you can turn my management report round in 1 day after my month end or 3 weeks after my month end, which is more valuable to me? Well, 1 day after month end is more valuable. If time was more valuable to me, I'd say take longer, take 3 weeks to do it, but it's not. It's the speed of the data. And so you don't want to attach yourself to anything that is going to hold you back. But the way I've seen value pricing taught, and this is just where I kind of really rile against it, was I once heard someone say that, and this is the exact line, find your client's maximum willingness to pay and use a combination of pricing techniques and sales techniques to get your fee to be as close to the client's maximum willingness to pay as possible. I take real offense at that, because to my mind, your client's maximum willingness to pay has got absolutely nothing to do with you, because they could come to you and their maximum willingness to pay could be $2,000 a month. However, all they need now is bookkeeping, and they need to get some good disciplines and practices in place before we get to that $2,000, before they start having the higher stuff. But likewise, Ains, their maximum willingness to pay could be $2,000 a month, but they need to spend $5,000 a month. And so the moment you attach yourself to their maximum willingness to pay, it means that you're stopping yourself from having the real conversation, which is, everything that clarity is all about, which is getting to the heart of what the issue is with that client, really unlocking that value, and then developing that confidence to say, you know what, this is what you need. This is what, if this is the line, Ains, this is what I would want if I was you, knowing what I know. And you've got to be able to get to a point in the conversation where you can say, this is what I would want if I was you, knowing what I know, and then have the confidence to present it and to stand by the fee attached to it. And the reality is, all these different fees that everyone's been talking about, all these different pricing techniques, they've all got merit. They've all got merit in different scenarios, and, they can all work. And the thing that you have to, that is a real issue in the accounting industry. Sorry, Ains, I know you're making notes and you wanted to interject, so I'm just keeping constantly talking, so I apologize for that.
No, it's good. There's massive gems in here. Can I just stop that one, because you
stop there,
reiterate that.
Let me make a note then of what I was going to say.
You need to reiterate that very, very clearly. That point that you were saying. If I were you,
yeah,
this is what I'd want. Knowing what I know now. Sorry, that's a very bad paraphrase.
No, that's it. That's it. Yeah, you've got to be able to get to that point. And that's why I've always taken issue with 3-tier pricing. And let me bring these lenses back up again. Because the moment you say to a client, well, here's 3 options, you decide, you just have to get abdicated responsibility. And you're not being fair to that client to say, this is actually what you need, you know. And also, I think the other lens of that is you need to be in control of that client to an extent. And if you allow the client to choose what they want rather than you convince them of what they actually need, they take ownership of the relationship very often then. And then that relationship can go downhill after that. So it's really important that you maintain being the authority in the relationship. And you only do that by standing by what you believe they need.
Well, I mean, I came to absolutely through experience. We started with 3-tier pricing. That's what everybody was talking about when I started practicing with pricing back in probably 2007. And we got rid of 3-tier pricing because of that very fact. People were confused. They didn't know what to choose. Now, Ron Baker, when I had him on and I posed that question about 3 tiers and giving a recommendation, it was very clear, no, you must have different tiers because Apple has different tiers. Everybody needs choice. They need to feel like they can control. I feel the way you and I are talking about, which is recommending a solution, isn't about lack of choice. It is about choice. It's about understanding the client and giving them options that you think are valuable and relevant for them at their particular moment in time.
100%, Aynsley. And I'll come on something because I've heard the Apple argument before, and I'll just explain why that doesn't work. But you know, so even in MAP, we would present our services, but within each service, there's still loads of different options. Like if you don't want monthly management accounts, you can have quarterly management accounts. And do you want a report with it, or do you want us to attend your board meeting? There's so many variations when you break it down. So although I go against 3-tier pricing and say that you should only offer one solution, I actually added it up once in MAP, in MAP's Go proposal, and there's 14 quadrillion possible options that they've got. So it's quite different to 3-tier pricing. But 3-tier pricing can work in specific line items if it makes sense. So the client still gets choice. You need management accounts, but do you want monthly or quarterly? Like that's the question, but not whether you're going to have them or not. But back to your point about Apple and why it doesn't work. Apple's, 3-tier pricing is great with a phone or selling a Mac or an iPad or whatever. But this is accounting is a very unique intersection, and it's the intersection between the complex and the complicated. Okay, so let me explain. Accounting services are complicated. Businesses and individuals are complex. So accounting services are complicated, but if you learn enough and study enough and document and procedurize and systemize, etc., you can fathom it out, okay? And you can control it to a degree. Largely, you can control it. Because businesses are complex, you can never control them. You can manage them, okay? The best analogy for this is cars and traffic. So cars are complicated, but you can get a Haynes manual and you can watch some YouTube videos. You can figure out how to mend an engine and learn about it, right? Traffic is complex because you've got different cars at different speeds with different drivers at different ages, with different levels of experience and different attention and focus going at different places, for different reasons. And so traffic is complex and can only ever be managed. Accounting services, because you're providing them to individuals and to businesses, is the intersection between the complicated and the complex. And that's why you can't simplify something down. Pricing, it can't be simplistic. You can't oversimplify it. It has to be sophisticated. And this is why it can be quite a challenge to get it right, because it needs the right level of sophistication that has the variety to be able to control all those different scenarios, but simple enough for every member of the team to use.
Cool. Like the analogy. Good.
We've not fallen out on anything yet. Come on, Ains. What are we going to fall out over?
What are we going to fall out over? Well, probably I'm waiting for some questions to come through. Everybody's been really quiet. Again, I think on this session, lots of people have been thoroughly absorbed, and so they don't tend to ask too many questions. So there's a lot on here, so you can ask us questions. We will take them. definitely. I want to get to the point about time, right, and speed. So there's a really great analogy that is used in the accounting world and in a book, Firm of the Future, written by Paul Dunn, who's on here, I believe.
Hello, Paul.
And they talk about a Boeing. And when an airline starts to sell and create seats for sale, they release, they have different categories. So they'll have first class, they'll have business, they'll have full paying standard, they'll have discounted standard, and they'll have, kind of the really cheap bereavement fares. And then when they launch, they will always hold back capacity at first, business, and full paying, but they will never hold capacity at the lower end of the plane. And the closer and closer you get to the flight, the more expensive the prices are going, but yet they will never release capacity at the back of the plane. It's always at the front of the plane. Yet accountants tends to always release capacity for the back of the plane at pinch points. Why do they do that, James? And how do they stop it? Because we've got to get onto mindset.
Yeah, cool. So can you give me a specific example, relate that to the accounting industry, Aynsley, to make sure I'm answering the right question?
Let's take the one on tax returns, right?
Yeah, okay.
So tax return, busy season.
Yeah.
Some accountants I know on here will be charging 150 quid a tax return, and they will be releasing capacity in December and January, diverting it away from their A, Bs, and C clients and spending it on doing 150 pound tax returns.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And doing it for all those clients that you've been chasing all year to get your information in, and then sacrificing your January to do it. Yeah. Huge problem. So, with tax returns, even more so now, you've got to have a sophisticated way of pricing tax returns. There can't be a one size fits all, and we've even got it where, you can have some hugely complicated tax returns if you think about it. So you really have to have a lot of sophistication around the pricing for those. I think a lot of it comes down to fear. The best person I know handling tax returns is Ewan Brown at Total Accounting in Scotland, right? He's brilliant. So love Ewan, he's a great guy. So he's just got total confidence in his service and what he offers. He charges a really good fee for tax returns, and he completes all tax returns by the end of September. That's the goal, right? So they crank up loads of pressure, April, May, June, getting people on the phone, ringing them up, putting them under pressure to get that over the line. And he has his fee for the service. If you tip over September into October, the fee instantly goes up by £50. October to November, another £50. November to December, I think it's up to the 10th of December. Maybe not. It may be. If it tips over to December, that's the end of it. The service is not going to be provided. I don't know if he provides a refund if they paid anything, but the service will now not be provided to you. Because what he says is he doesn't want any of his staff going into the Christmas break dreading coming back in January. He also doesn't want to spend all of January putting his entire team under pressure because there's no relief. 2 years ago, or whenever, 2 years ago, you got January tax returns, so everyone goes crazy for that. But now February is hugely difficult because you're doing all the catch-up work that you couldn't do in January. And then what happened? COVID hit. No wonder it took firms over the edge, and everyone blamed COVID. The reason you were under pressure wasn't because of COVID. It's because you didn't have control over your tax returns. And that was the thing that gave a lot of problems for people. And so I know COVID did create huge problems for many, many people, but it also became the scapegoat for lots of things. So, with things like tax returns, it comes down to people being prepared to have difficult conversations, people being willing to pick up the phone and talk to people and to have that chat. And, there's so many what are perceived as difficult conversations to be had, whether it's conversations with team members, with clients or whatever. And just as human beings, we're typically afraid of that. This got nothing to do with pricing or accountants. This is, you can't avoid this, Ains, I'm afraid. It's hardwired into the core of your brain because we have primitive parts of our brain that are designed to keep us part of the tribe. Because if we wander out of the tribe, we won't get food. We might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, and we're not going to be able to sit by the fireside. So we're hardwired to be tribal people, to be friendly with people, to stay around them so that we can get some of the food, be sheltered, and if we get attacked, we can all be safe. The problem is that part of our brain isn't really that useful anymore because we live in the safest world we've ever lived in. You're not going to get attacked, but it still kicks in. It's still the overriding thing. So there is there is no way you can ever silence that. It's always going to be there. So the reason why we become fearful of a client leaving, or we don't want to charge more in case they go, or that, you know, they judge us, is fear of judgment and fear of rejection. And it's a primitive part of your being, and there's nothing you can do about it.
What about fear that I'm not going to fill that income that month and I'm going to not have the cash to pay the team or the rent or whatever? That'll be a lot of people thinking as well. I'm not going to get the money.
You're right, Ains, and it's interesting. I met with someone this morning, actually, who has got this exact story. So she came to us a few years ago and tried Go Proposal, and we showed her how to price more, charge more, have this conversation. And she kind of went around with it for a bit and then left it, said, no, it's not for me, and gave various reasons and went off. People are motivated by moving away from pain. That's the reality. And what had happened was, when she first saw it, she has now got associated pain with sitting in front of a client and saying, I've got to charge you more. I've got to increase your fees. I've got to do this. And in her mind, that was a hugely fearful thing. What then happened was, over the next few months, she then wasn't making enough money, was struggling to make payroll, was not paying herself enough money, working ridiculous hours. So all of a sudden, the perceived pain of a situation was here, but then of having that conversation, but then the pain of her reality was increasing. She came back to us and says, will you have me back? I said, of course we will, but only if you do what I tell you to do. Within 3 days of her returning, she sat with her, then the highest fee paying client she had, and she increased his fee by 10 times, right? I don't even share this story widely, Ains, because it's like one of them 10x your fees. Like, it's so unbelievable, but it was a true 10x in her fees. And the client said to her, where have you had the confidence to sit in front of me and show me this? And she explained, and she thought he was going to kick her out. And the next question he said, where do I sign? And so you've got to look at where the pain, what is the pain that's actually motivating you, and have the awareness of that, and make sure that you move, are you moving away from a perceived pain, or are you moving towards the actual thing you should be moving towards? Very, very difficult to do.
Okay, let's get back to that leadership and communication piece in a sec. Let's drill into that. So, because there'll be lots of people on here, right? We've heard lots of theories. Everybody's spouting a different methodology. Okay, we had Jody on last week, who was very clear. I use different pricing methodologies I didn't even know they were called what they were called. I just did them because they felt normal and natural, and I didn't know what was right or wrong, and I just did them and they worked. And then people tell me afterwards, oh, that's X, Y, Z. Oh, that's value pricing. So let's forget the hang up of what they're actually called. Yep. How does somebody go into a client? Because this will be the fear for most people on. How do I go into a client? Because the 10x is right, because we do 10x at Clarity, and it happens all the time. Yes, I know you're afraid to tell accountants it can 10x, but 10x is a reality, because it's just simple things put together in the right way, and then it's a massive difference. But forgetting the 10x, how do I go to a client? I'm going to double their fee, say, not 10x. I'm going to double their fee. How do I go in and have that conversation with them tomorrow? Because I want people today on this call to leave today with 3 things that they're going to do tomorrow. At least 3 things. Yeah. But 3 things that they can easily do tomorrow to make a difference. What are those things?
Okay. So I'm not going to promote, this is not going to be a pitch for Go Proposal.
We're not pitching Clarity either.
There are other products out there. You can use other products. But we developed it. So let me talk about it in generic terms. You need something that's not you saying what the price is. It can't be you, because that fear of rejection is heightened when it's me saying, Ains, this is the fee. It's now me saying it, okay? So you need something to deflect effectively the conversation. So it's the system saying it's this. It's our methodologies. Like, when have you ever argued with a waiter or a waitress and they've come over and they said, this is your bill? It's like, well, you've charged me for extra fries. I didn't know you did. It's on the menu. Like, we talked about it at the start of the meal. Like, it's quite clear, right? So effectively, a menu of prices, Paul back in the day used an Excel spreadsheet. If you want to go and develop yourself a complex Excel spreadsheet, knock yourself out. We took that methodology and we incorporated it into our system. But effectively, you need something that says this is the price, not you. It needs to be based on, and this is what we based it on, logical factors. I want to be able to understand it as a client. I always think, you should be able to tell a client why they're paying the fee they're paying or how we've arrived at that price. I always think, I'm a big believer, Ains, that the way you start any relationship is the way you start every relationship. It should be started with honesty and transparency. And it should be thought in terms of what's the value here that we can give over the next 10, 20 years. People think in too short a time frames, right? So we want to develop the most valuable relationship we can over time. That's the key thing here. And so a system that has the data in, and to do it collaboratively with the client. And ideally, you want to build it up with the client. So effectively, Clarity is such a wonderful product. You can't dive into that. This is what you can't talk about things in isolation. You can't dive into a pricing conversation unless you've done what you teach people to do. Because unless you're uncovering what the real problem is, and you understand about me that a key motivator for me, Ains, is that I want to be able to pick my kids up, to take them to and from school every day. And I want to get my golf handicap down from 10 to 7, right? And I want my wife to leave a job and I want to live near the kids' school. If you don't know that about me, you can now not do this piece. This can't happen, because as you're going through that pricing, you've got to be able to say, well, you said that you want to be able to pick your kids to, take your kids to and from school every day, but you're telling me that you're spending Friday afternoon and all Saturday morning running payroll and doing bookkeeping. Well, we're going to take all that from you. Okay. You're telling me that you're doing this, so we're going to do this for you. So you've got to be able to legitimately justify what you're sharing with them. And so long as you've then got the pricing, workings, methodologies behind the scenes, and guys, it's not going to be perfect. Don't stop trying to get your pricing to be 100%. Get it to 85%, right? It'll be fine. Then we'll get it to 86 and 87. So get it there. And one of the methods that we do use that I think does gel with an accountant's mindset is we have like transactional based pricing. So if you've got this number of clients on payroll, it's this amount. If you've got this number of transactions going through your bookkeeping, then, if we're reconciling this number of items for you, it's this amount. That works really well for several services. I think I've lost track of the question now, actually, Aynsley. How do you, okay, so system.
3 things. So we've got something not you doing
not you, something
based
collaborative.
On logic.
You've got to do it with, you've got to be logical, and you've got to be able to do it with the client. What you can't do is send it to me afterwards. So people are so fearful, and they daren't have the conversation in the meeting. So they'll say, I'll tell you what, I'll send you the price afterwards. Well, we've got to have the conversation at some point. Okay. So if this is our meeting now, Ains, you're either going to have the conversation with me here while I'm focused on it and while we can have a chat, or you're not. Well, after here, I'm going to Sheffield. Okay. Then I'm off to pick my brother up. Then I'm going home, not seeing my kids for a couple of days. So when do you think you're going to ring me to sort this out? The answer is you're not. So you've got to be able to do it while you're with them. And I know it's fearful, but you've got to do it at some point, and the alternative is much worse. So that's why you have to be able to do it collaboratively.
Okay, so 2 questions.
Yes.
One, the small business owner is going to say, well, that's all very well, but you've been charging me half of this all the way along the line. Now, why suddenly are you doubling my price?
Yes. Great question. I've just run a session with, I've done it twice this year so far. I took 50 firms and I said, I'm going to show you how to all increase your revenue. We only set a minimum target, like a £500 each a month from existing clients for the work you're already doing. And they collectively increased their fees by £500,000 of ARR within 30 days, right? And it all comes down, the reason why people don't do it is the fear of this one question, which is what you just said, why have my fees gone up? And you know what the answer is? It's a combination of factors. It's always a combination of factors. There's never any one thing, okay? And so it may be that, well, your service level has increased. It may be that you've told me that you've now got this challenge that you're trying to solve, and so we've had to increase your management accounts from quarterly to monthly. So we've increased the service level, or you said you're not taking your kids to school because you're working late or you're working in the morning. So we're now going to take over your bookkeeping, or your circumstances have changed. So you've now got more transactions going through your account. You've got 3 extra members of staff that we're running payroll for. The pension scheme that you've signed up for has got greater complexity that we're having to manage. And you're generating £2 million extra a year, which therefore brings more conversations, more emails. And you don't want me keeping a timesheet every time you call me. So we factored these conditions into the fees, and this is it. But one of the other factors that can come into this is that historically, you priced too low. Now, that is a real hard one because at that point, you've got to hold your hands up and say, I got it wrong. Okay. Now, the only thing you can do really in that scenario is to say, one of the other reasons we've got to increase the fees is I'll hold my hands up now. We priced you too low and I've effectively been giving you a discount for the last 2 years. And I respect and value this relationship too much to allow it to continue, because if we keep charging you that, the reality is we're just not going to be able to service you to the level you want. So you got one or two choices. Either you can keep having what you're having, or you can keep paying what you're paying, but you can't have both. And I'm sorry. So if you want to keep having what you're having, that's fine. There's going to be a fee increase. If you want to keep paying what you're paying, that's fine. Let's take some of these services down or reduce some of these services, or you take them in-house. And you know what? If that doesn't work for you, I'm really sorry. I've got two other firms that I'll gladly pass you to, and they may be able to work with you. But that's the, I don't want to make people afraid, but that is the hardest. That is the, and that will be rare. So I think in 80% of the cases, people, once you've explained it, will be fine with it. And it's very, very rarely that you'll actually have as much pushback as you think, around this, but that is the way to handle it. I've got a crib sheet. I'll ping it through to you after this if you want to share it, Ains. It's cool.
Fantastic. So we love objection crushers, which we use them in Clarity. So
yes,
absolutely love to have that. And that deals with the question I was going to ask, which is, nothing changed in my business and you're doubling my fee. What's going on? And we can, and the reality will be I've underpriced and I have to hold my hands. So thanks for answering that question.
There is another factor there, Ains. In the firm in MAP recently, we've brought in a senior FD level accountant. I mean, we have a specific niche of digital creative agencies, and she's been the finance director in firms. The stuff that she does is just insane, like just crazy level. So we've brought in a more senior members of staff, and she's training all the team members up as well. And everyone's now upskilled. So the level of knowledge and value that everyone's getting and insights that you're getting has massively increased. So it can just be a leveling up of the service or a leveling up of the value. That could be another factor. So that's when I said, why have my fees gone up? It's a combination of factors.
Brilliant. What about the accountant down the road is charging half what you're charging?
Yeah. Well,
good luck.
Go to them, crack on. Best of luck. When I was a magician, I used to be a magician. I used to get to a point where, I used to charge a lot for magic, right? I used to be pretty good. Anyway, and I learned this answer, and I never had anyone discount me. So people would say, can I get a discount? I can get it cheaper. Absolutely not, but I don't blame you for asking. That was always my default question, my answer. There's another magician who charges much less. So well, I actually know someone who charges less than that if you want. If you're looking for cheap, I can give you his details, but I'll warn you now, he does like a drink. But if you want his details, I'll send it through. So,
good.
It's just about, here's an interesting one for this, Ains. One thing that you can do is when an account, this is quite high level and quite detailed, but it works very well. And we have certainly used it in our firm. One thing when people are procuring your services is they've not actually set their buying criteria. Okay. So they actually don't know how to judge your firm with that other firm down the road. So when they're looking at it, it looks like the same set of services and they are cheaper. So why wouldn't they go there? So you've actually got to help them to set the buying criteria. So one thing that we've done in MAP, and it works brilliantly, to say, cool, if you want to go and compare them, you've got to feel comfortable with who you're going with. This is a lifelong relationship. It's got to be right for your business, right for your family, right for your lifestyle, etc. Right? Here's a set of questions that you can judge us by, and it's a really good framework. Go and use them to judge other companies by as well. So it could be, for example, how fast can you turn my set of monthly management accounts by? What technology do you use for X? How fast can you achieve this, etc. So what you do is you set the buying criteria, but ultimately you're setting it to win. So for example, when we send monthly management accounts out in MAP, we also send out a stakeholder report, which is effectively a pared down version of the management accounts that goes to the person's partner, and it can go to senior team members as well if they want. We also send a summary video of the management report. It's so easy to do a summary video on Loom, right? But it's like a bird's eye view, takes 5 minutes, hugely valuable. So if you've got a question in there that says, ask them, do they send summary videos to share with stakeholders? Do they provide a stakeholder report of their management accounts? I know that no one else is going to be able to match that. Okay. So when they're comparing what you're charging for management report versus them, they're assessing them based on your criteria that you're helping them to set.
Great tip. We've got questions coming in about when is the best time to communicate a price increase? Year end, month end, after a big tax saving? Is there a perfect time?
I get, it depends. I'm sorry, is the answer. Regularly is my quick response. If it's payroll increases every month, like, don't be afraid to do. And so anyway, this neatly brings on to the new pricing methodology that we're going to be introducing very soon. And it's the concept of live pricing, events-based pricing. So if you've set certain criteria to payroll or to the number of transactions or whatever, why should you have to go into the system and incrementally adjust the proposal? Because the system knows what's going on. It knows this information. So it should be live, in a live sense, increasing the client's fee for you. So what's going to be happening when we launch this is you could log into Go Proposal in next month and all of your fees have gone up because it's automatically based on rules been increasing your client's fees for you. So that's not quite got a name for it yet. Events-based pricing, live pricing, something like that. You know, I'm head of names, Ains, so I'm sure I'll come up with something around that. So payroll every month, bookkeeping, don't go any longer than a quarter. So bookkeeping can change quite a lot if they've got a lot more transactions. And again, the way it goes, it's so positive. Hey, Ains, I've just logged into your account. I can see that you've got a lot more transactions going through. You're producing a lot more invoices. There's much more for us to reconcile. Fantastic. Well done. You must be doing something right. The great news is there's still no more work for you to do. We're going to do it for you. There's been a small increase in your fees. You've got a new proposal in your inbox and your invoice has been automatically changed. There's nothing for you to do. Is there anything else I can help you with while I've got you on the call? Like, there's no pain. It's like easy. I'll tell you what would be interesting to ask everyone that you've had on this call, how much they spend on their accounting bill. I love my accounting bill going up, just like I love my tax bill going up, because it means that I'm going in the right direction, right? So I don't know what my accounting bill is now. It's like $5-6 grand a month, something like that. And when it increases, I just think, brilliant, less work for us to do. We're still growing. We're making more money and you guys are handling it. Fantastic. So I'm with in the way that I like that to go. So payroll every month, bookkeeping every quarter, annually for everything else. But the reality is I would override all of that and just say regularly. And that's why you've got to be charging monthly. You can't charge annually. You have to charge monthly because you've got to have that ability to be incrementally increasing fees. Every member of your team. When I first met Paul, there was him and 13 members of staff, and he was the only salesperson. I'm like, why haven't you got an army of salespeople? Why aren't all 13? They're the ones talking to the clients every day, not you. If they uncover something with a client, you've got to charge for it. And if you're the bottleneck, they won't charge for it because they know it's too much for pain to go back to the owner, to get them to agree a fee, to send a proposal out. So not only are you not charging for it, I guarantee you won't have a letter of engagement for it as well. So you're not covered. So you're doing all this extra work, putting yourself under huge risk, because if something goes wrong with the information and guidance you've now given to that client, they'll be the first person to be knocking on your door, wanting to know why that thing that you said to them has just cost them 50 grand in their R&D tax claim or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Up front is an explanation, in arrears is an excuse, I think is that.
Say that again, Ains. Let me write that down. Say that again.
Up front is an explanation.
Yeah.
In arrears is an excuse.
Yes. Love it.
I think that sums it up pretty brilliantly. We've got a question in. So Jody says, thank you, James, for everything that you've said. It's what I've been doing and saying. It's great to know that you have the same views. It's given me much more courage to do this. Thank you. So that's lovely. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Someone was asking, do you ever, if you're billing on transaction numbers, do you ever price decrease, for example?
Absolutely. 100%. It's an honest relationship. You're in this for the long haul. If their transactions go down, if you've got less members of staff on pay, running payroll for, absolutely you bring the fees down. You've got to think long term. What's his client worth over 10 years, not what they're worth this month.
So James, what do I do tomorrow to make pricing different in my firm?
Okay, so one of the big things I'm talking about, and this is going to be the kind of the theme of my new book, is everyone's, and I said this in my video that I shared with you before, and I've got these little, oh, you can't see. There you go, you see it now. So everyone's looking for diamond clients. And whenever you speak to people, the first thing they think is, let me go and these great clients that are going to value us and pay us more money, I'm going to go out and find them. It's like, they're not out there, because diamond clients don't look like this. Diamond clients look like this. They're lumps of rocks with sharp edges, and they're dull, and they're covered in muck, and they're buried in the ground, and you've got to get your hands dirty and dig them out and knock the rough edges off and clean them up and polish them up. What you want to get is not a diamond finding firm. You want a diamond creating firm. You want the ability to take what you have and shape them up. And I always believe that everything you're looking for, you have right now. I always think that's the healthiest starting point. I speak to people and they say, oh, we've taken on all these new clients this month. And my initial feeling is one of dread. I think that's a nightmare. Every new client is so difficult. Like, you've got to learn about them, understand them, find out everything that they didn't tell you about their situation, right? So I would much rather work with people that we've got. So I would first of all go back to
everyone you've got.
Say no. Not everyone you've got, just far more people than you think. Okay. So even nightmare clients, when you look at nightmare clients, you know, and I see people posting this, oh, it's a pitter client, I'm going to get rid of them. And yeah, get rid of them. They don't value. They don't value you because you train them not to value you. You didn't have the conversation that unlocked the value. You allowed them to discount your fee. You had a meeting booked for an hour and you allowed them to have an hour and a half. You said that they had to give you that data by 5 p.m. on Thursday. Otherwise, you weren't going to be able to process their payroll. And they gave it to you on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And you miss your kid's soccer practice to go and do it. You train them to be that bad client. So you have to take responsibility for that. Now, that untraining can be difficult. And that's where you have to have these challenging conversations. But it's really, Ains, I would say, go and identify with what you've got already, one client who you think you can go and have a better conversation with, okay? Go and look at everything you've got with clarity. If you're not with clarity, get with clarity and go and have a look at all of the stuff that they have, because it will show you how to go and have that better conversation that will unlock that greater value. So just go and find 2 or 3 clients. I always think 3 is a good number, Ains, because what happens is when you look at your firm, you think, well, I've got 50 clients or 500 clients and they all need repricing, and you leave this webinar and your head's blown. All I want you to do is take a step. 3 clients. 3 clients is the best thing, because if you go to what can happen if you take 1 client and you go to them and you try and increase their fees and they reject you, like, oh, it's not working. Why did I attend that webinar? If you take 3, you may lose 1, but you may have increased 2. So on average, you're now better off. Cool. Let's take the next 3. So it's to identify 3 clients. What I would say, 1, it's up to you which ones you want to handle. If you've got 3 clients who you don't care about losing, like they cost you money, you dread them seeing their number on your phone, you know it's costing you to serve them. So who cares if they go? That could be 3 to take on. Or it could be you take 2 of those on and 1 who you've got a really good relationship with, but you know you've just not talked to them about X, and you know there's so much more you could be doing for them, and that actually makes you feel good to have that conversation. You've got to decide where you're at. Go and find 3, and the challenge, Ains, is by 5 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, you've got to have reached out to all 3. You don't have to have the pricing conversation. You don't have to have had the meeting. But you have to have at least have emailed them and said, hey, we need to have a chat. When's a good time? There is nothing like getting something in the diary to force you to do all that stuff that you know you needed to do historically. Get a date in the diary, and then you will figure the rest out.
Cool. And do we always need to recalibrate the service to up the fee, do you think?
Just elaborate on that a little bit more, Ains, sorry.
Well, do I need to add extra value? Perceived value, even if it's perceived value, do I always need to do something extra to be able to increase the fee?
You don't have to do anything extra to increase the fee. No, when we did this work with the accountants, there were scenarios where people were doing less work and increasing the fee. You don't need to do more and increase the fee. So it could be the same work and increase the fee, could be less work and increase the fee. You've just got to make sure that you're having the right conversation with the client.
I appreciate time. So I'm running on last question from Patrick. So I totally trust James and GP. Where does one find new clients? It really is a huge problem.
I think that's probably a question for another webinar. That's probably, you've just fueled Clarity's next web series, which will be brilliant, I'm sure. It is a big thing. That is a big thing, Patrick. But again, I would go back to what I said earlier, which is, are you doing everything you can with everyone you have? Because there is no point in filling a bucket. There's no point in filling a bucket that's got holes in it. You know, if you only, to my mind, you still want to be bringing business in, but you know, there's been times in MAP's history where we have locked down. We're not taking on any more clients because we have got holes to seal in this bucket first. So it is a problem, but I have never met a firm yet that has got all the holes fixed in their bucket first. Get that fixed and then attend Clarity's next webinar series, which is going to be on how to find and attract the best clients.
James, awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a huge amount of content. Somebody's asked, they've come late, will they be able to get a recording? Yes, we are going to amplify this. We had 3-figure sums registered for this, so lots of people come for the recordings. We will be recording and sending out the recording. We'll probably turn it into a podcast because there's a huge amount of valuable content in there for everybody. And so we'll amplify this message as great as we can. James, awesome. Thank you very much. Have you got any last words for the audience?
Just take a step forward, guys. Whatever you do, you know, you'll come off this charge, and I would just suggest you take one step before you do anything else. Don't go and check your phone now. Don't go and look in your inbox. Just while you're motivated and fired up, just do one thing. Take one step forward, because that's the thing that will start the momentum to get you to where you need to be.
James, it's been a pleasure. Great to
Thank you, sir.
again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, pal. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Cheers, guys. See ya.